Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Sip. We're back to probably my favourite topic, to be fair. And in fact, I'm sure we look back at the guests. There's probably a skew to tourism, but that is just because of a pure passion and love for it. But really good to catch up with a friend of mine, Rob, who with his wife Bridget runs the Bimblers, and we're going to get an update on how that's obviously been understandably quite affected this year and what that means to them. But it'd be nice just to have a catch up about some of the trips that Rob and Bridget did and how blogging became a powerful tool in their life and around inclusion of disabled people. So Rob, thanks for joining me, mate.
It's great to be here. It's nice to see you again.
You too. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been a while, man. You're so busy these days, aren't you? So, you can't fit us minions in.
Well, it's working out well that, like, the Daily Sip is a great chance to catch up with everyone.
It's an excuse.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the value that the viewers get, whether it's like today, there are people that are maybe looking for a bit of help for their trip, even if it's going to be next year post-COVID. But there's that bit, the consumer side. There's influencers that are looking for tips on blogging and growing a community. And then maybe industry side on LinkedIn particularly, there's always people looking for inspiration and help with what is inclusive and accessible tourism. So as much as we get a good old catch up, there'll be a lot of value for everyone watching. Just Mark's already said hi, so we'll just say hi back to Mark.
Hi,
we
Mark.
Get stuck in.
I just hope I'm not too much value. As I said to you last week, was it earlier on in the week, I've had to practice not using bad language and not being too controversial.
So did you see the episode I had about sex a week or two ago?
No, I didn't know.
Right, so Lorraine was brilliant. It was such a really important topic, and it was all done very tastefully. You said to me before, am I allowed to talk? What language can I use? And I said, I think particularly as it's sex related, let's do the BBC version.
Yeah. So bearing in mind that you are live and you can't take it back.
I know, exactly right. Yeah. I remember on Big Brother, they say, Davina always said, you're live on Channel 4, please do not swear. A bit like that, isn't it? Cool. Well, so yeah, but for everyone else watching, it'd be great just to hear a bit about you, the backstory, and how you came to start the Bimblers.
Okay. Well, obviously, I'm Rob. I'm one part of the Bimblers. Bridget's the other partner in crime, shall we say. Yeah. The Bimblers was started back in the end of 2014, I think it was. And it came about, it was sort of a set of circumstances that followed on from each other. 2013, I was working full-time for the Citizens Advice Bureau. I was walking the coastal paths. Bridget had rheumatoid arthritis, refractory rheumatoid arthritis, so she doesn't respond to any treatment. And we'd managed to sort of maintain Bridget being able to get through the day while I was out at work. And it sounds crazy, but it all changed when she picked up a piece of bread and her wrist collapsed. Oh, wow. And it sounds a bit far-fetched, but literally that's what happened. Obviously, there'd been a lot of wear and tear over the years, and it just, something sparked it. And ultimately what they did is they basically removed the wrist, and her fingers on both hands were semi-dislocated. So it just made it really difficult for her to get through the day without more support. Fortunately, with the Citizens Advice Bureau, I was an advice services supervisor, and I worked in the health outreach team as well. I started off as a volunteer years before, and they were very good with me. I was able to go down to part-time, but it just became apparent that, I was being selfish, to be honest. I was trying to sort of keep my job and look after Bridget, and sadly, the two just didn't go together.
Life,
yeah. So ultimately, we made the decision that I'd need to give up work and basically become a full-time carer. So I lasted about a fortnight, to be honest. Where it was initially like a little holiday, and
Yeah.
then we were going stir crazy. We'd never spent 24 hours a day together for
Yeah.
long periods of time. And eventually, we just decided that we needed to do something. And as I say, prior, I was walking the coastal path. So I'd go out and I'd walk 12, 15 miles. And the idea was to walk the whole coast of the country in stages, not,
Yeah.
and that's a giveaway. And I come up with this crazy idea. Now, at the time, because I didn't even know accessible tourism was a thing. Bridget had had a wheelchair for many years. She wouldn't go in it, if the truth be known. She's only 26 when she effectively became disabled.
Right.
And I sort of persuaded that, we'll go where nobody knows you. And it sounds awful saying that today, but this was the thought process at the time. And so we just started going out, little days out, just going for a walk, and it never dawned on me before how difficult it was, because we hadn't been in those circumstances. And I said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll start writing about it. Now, I've written lots of tribunal representations and social policy reports, but I've never actually written a blog.
Yeah.
Well, I've done a few bits, but nothing at scale. So we decided, okay, we'll do that then. So it's crazy ideas just come into my mind. Yeah, well, we'll do that. And it's a life-changing thing, but you don't realize it at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think our first trip was the end of 2014, and we went to Cardiff. I said, we'll start with the capital cities because, you can't go wrong there, really, can you?
Yeah.
Unquote. So off we went to Cardiff by train. I said, we need to know what public transport's like. I didn't know that you had to book to go in the wheelchair.
Right, yeah.
We just turned up at Lime Street, and fortunately, we were getting a train to Crewe and then Crewe to Birmingham and then Birmingham to Cardiff. Fortunately, the guards at Liverpool realised that we were very naive and bumped us up to first class on the Virgin trains and phoned through to make sure all the connections, we had the ramp, and we were able to, get all the way to Cardiff. So that's sort of how it started, really. And then, we started sort of putting stuff out online, and then all of a sudden there's all these people. I kept hearing about, this guy called Martin Sibley. He seemed to be the main man, and there was just different people. Then I met Carrie Ann through travel, whatever the name of the charity is or was.
Tourism for All. Yeah.
Tourism for All. And it just sort of escalated from there, really. So, as like most things in life, it started off as an accident and just kept going. And we probably 3 or 4 years, and we started doing days out, and I didn't want it to be a blog about being ill. I sort of felt that there was enough being ill online, and I wanted it to be about, but here's what you can do. Again, even that, looking back, was naive, because you have to remember at the time I was fit and healthy, so it was easy for me to push a wheelchair miles and miles and miles. It was easy for me to say, okay, let's jump in the car and drive 5 hours somewhere. And it's only really, I've just to sort of keep going then. So, the Bimblers sort of bimbled along. If it's bimbling or bimble, it basically means, I think, traveling or walking slowly without purpose. And I think, the tagline on the blog is life in the slow lane. And that's basically what happened. And then as you start sort of going on social media and you build up a little bit of a following, and then you start getting invited on trips. And to be honest, I loved every minute of it, and I met lovely people, brilliant facilities, but I was always uncomfortable with it because, and we've had this conversation at length. I know we have. In fact, it was mentioned yesterday with Elba, about people being able to afford things and not.
Mm.
And I was struggling with, look, here's what you can do, and isn't it great? But I know, especially from my previous experience, that the majority of the people I was talking to wouldn't be in a position to do those things.
Mm.
And if the truth be known at the time, neither was I.
Mm.
And, I was very grateful, and, I'm sure it helped some people, but I wanted to help more people. I wanted it to be for everybody. I realize now that, it can't be that way, but at the same time, so I tried to sort of do things on the blog that didn't cost anything, free days out. Certainly around, we've done a number of things around Liverpool and the Northwest, and that's where I was comfortable doing stuff that didn't cost the earth.
Mm.
I'm happy to do things that cost the earth. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, that was just the cherry on the cake. What really mattered to me was the bit below that, and that sort of went along for a number of years, and the Bimblers got more and more known, and then out of the blue, I got ill. Just it come from nowhere. I started off with just widespread pain. You go to GP eventually, and one thing led to another. And within a period of about 8 months, I'd been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, kidney cancer, heart failure, 2 different types of sleep apnea. I'd lost a kidney, they had to take one of my kidneys out. And all of a sudden, it was sort of, everything just turned upside down.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where we left off, if you like. That's where probably the last that you heard of the Bimblers, because, I sort of, there was a period of recovery. There was ongoing treatment. The treatment's actually still ongoing for, for kidney cancer. I think I'm cancer free. I don't really know. I'll probably find out next week. I'm fairly sure I am. I'm fairly positive I am. And so we've effectively been locked down for the last couple of years. I haven't put out much content. And then obviously 2020 hit, and we know what happened there. So sort of that's where we are at the moment. And I know we'll talk about this in more depth. As for the future, I have started writing again. In fact, I was just earlier on this morning. I finished editing a 4,000 word blog post.
Wow.
And it's literally about a day in the life. And I think that's where I'm more comfortable talking about. Actually, I'm guilty of throwing out the terms, and I know this is an ongoing thing. The terminology: people with disabilities, disabled people. I try my best, and I don't mean any offence.
Yeah.
I just haven't got the capacity to get bogged down with it, and I understand the reasons why, but I think at the same time we have to be careful. I wrote a post very early on in the Bimblers, what is accessible tourism. You probably won't remember it, but essentially what it was saying that. And this sort of comes in because, I know you're very involved with Purple Goat, and it comes back to that about. I don't think it was the people didn't want to help. Or I think it was they were scared.
Absolutely.
They were scared of getting it wrong.
Yeah, totally agree.
And the danger is at the moment, and I understand the frustration. Let's be honest, we're all frustrated with something at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that there's different tribes building up, and I think what it's going to do is scare people. And I said this to you, when you invited. Well, in fact, the first time you invited me on, believe it or not, I'd literally the day before took a razor to me hair, and I'd shaved every bit of hair off because all the barbers were shut. And I said, I couldn't possibly come on. You'll have to wait, my hair grows back. So this tribe thing, I think we've got to be really. It's easy for me to say, I know that, but I think we've got to be really, really careful. I smiled to myself, or laughed actually out loud the other day. It was a Chris or Mark or somebody with the carrot and the stick, a big stick with a carrot, and I think I just feel from the outside looking in, this is the good news now, because I've been out of it and been able to take a step back. I just feel that we have to be really, really careful. Accessible tourism, accessible travel. There's another one. See, this is why I didn't want to come on, because I just go off on one. If we're wheelchair friendly. Oh, you can't say that because it's not friendly to everybody. Okay, well, wheelchair accessible. You can't say that. I'll tell you what. How about it? This is me. This is about this is what's available to me. And I trust the audience to be to understand that. Well, actually, that won't work for me.
Yeah.
Or it will work for me.
I think Carrie Ann said, didn't she, the other day, that what they're doing at Access Able is trying to give the data, the information, and then the individual has to sort of make the judgment themselves on whether it's suitable for them or not. I think that's a good approach.
But you've got to trust. You've got to trust people. I mean, see. And you won't remember again, but when we first started talking today, I said about how naive I was, because I was saying, you just go out and you push the chair for miles and miles and miles, and now I can just about walk to the car. So, I'm learning more by not being involved in it at the moment, and it bothers me, it scares me, even though I understand all of it, that we don't bang that big stick too much. Because I think you've got to take people along with you rather than drag them along with you.
Yeah, well, we've always had that similar or same view, haven't we? That it's, as much as it's annoying, you got to get people on your side, not go against them, because they'll just be like, this is too much effort and too much difficulty and headache, so we'll just not bother. And then where are we? Yeah.
Well, especially with social media, because it's this practice of calling people out. I've even seen people amongst the sort of the community fighting amongst each other. And this is what I'm saying. I think we've got to be careful. But sort of when I first sort of came on the scene, so to speak, everybody seemed to be singing from the same hymn sheet, and you've got to pick a side now, and I don't like that. I don't think we need to pick a side. I think we need to do it together. Some people will agree with that. Some people won't. Good. That means we're still.
Can you see a way to bring that about in it? Just general brainstorming. Like, can you see like a way, even if it's not happening now? But how could you bring people to be aligned in the same way and work with the brands? What would you reckon?
I think the short answer is yes. The long answer is I've genuinely no idea how, because there's too many variables. People are getting dug in, And when you sit down and look at it, you think, well, but what's that going to achieve? All you're actually doing, and I was guilty, this more. All you end up doing is winding yourself up, and it's not good for you. I'm sort of living testimony to that. I think the good news is that there's a lot more people now in this niche, so the voices are much more varied. And when back in 2014, early 2015, there was a handful of voices. Now there's many voices, all bringing something to the party.
Yeah.
And it would be a shame if you have to be the loudest or you have to be the one that's heard.
Yeah.
That would be a shame. It's much better if everybody, obviously, dealing with their own individual circumstances. But the bigger message has got to be that what's the problem? How do you define the problem? It's the government, it's big business, it's individual. Look, I think all people can do is prove the value. And the way to prove the value is to work with people. I don't think you can force a solution by shouting really loud. And, I'm sorry. And people I know are getting really, really frustrated shouting and nobody's listening.
I know. But it's a bit like if you keep trying the same thing and you get the same result and the result isn't the result you want, then don't keep trying the same thing.
Well, I just think, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you'll get the same result.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're not getting the result you want at the moment, well, then maybe it's time to change tact. And the great news is people like yourself and there's many others who seem to be that calm and influence, the constant, and I would have sort of put myself on the outskirts, on the extreme, and I've learned to sort of tone it down. But don't get me on Abel's. I've learned to tone it down, and as I say, in one respect, my health problems have been a blessing because I've been able to take a step back and look at life completely differently. I just woke up one morning, I didn't even know if I was going to wake up. And it does sort of, it's a great leveler.
Well, I think COVID has done that because no one knows who's going to get it and if it will affect us, in a really bad way. So I think, not in the same way if you've had a lot of different health difficulties that very much directly have impacted you the last year or two. But yeah, I think the whole world has been forced to slow down and take stock and realize that there are other priorities, like the way we clap the NHS staff, that that just wasn't. Everyone loves the NHS in a like media bang the drum way, but really, really got down to wow, what real superheroes. So yeah, I think that generally has gone on in the world. I suppose it would just be interesting whatever it looks like, vaccination or whatever happens when we get through COVID, how people come out the other side as well.
You're absolutely right. I think we all probably all remember the first days of COVID, and we couldn't get any toilet roll or and basically that was just, there was obviously people who would do a monthly shop and buy all that stuff anyway, and then there was obviously people who were panicking, and it didn't leave any for anybody else. And you sort of look at that and think, we're still very selfish. But then you see all, as we've gone through it, you see the acts that people have done, things people have done, and the acts of kindness, and you think to yourself, it restores your faith in humanity, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
There's always going to be a minority that they still wear the red braces, don't they? And think that they're working in Wall Street.
Yeah.
It's all about me, 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 me.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I think overall, the COVID situation has been a great leveler, and hopefully it's made people realise what's important. You know, I mean, touch wood. Personally, we haven't actually been touched by anybody close to us.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest hardship we've had, apart from a couple of trips to A&E during the period, was having the kids back home from university after we'd settled into our routine, you know. Whereas people have gone through so much, and you know, you can only imagine. In fact, I don't even think you can. I mentioned when we were talking before, you know, that Bridget was taken into hospital early on, thing, and I had a little stint in A&E, and it was like landing on Mars, you know. You know, they were all had all the gear on, and it was really, really scary. But then you think to yourself, thank God we've got them, you know. And people like myself, I've had so much help from the NHS certainly in the last couple of years. Well, I wouldn't be here, simple as that. You know, if they hadn't have found the kidney cancer and they hadn't have found the heart failure, then, you know, I guess it could have been a different story. So I didn't really need any encouragement, to be honest, to appreciate the National Health Service. I just hope that it's not a flash in the pan. You know, I just hope that people have got long memories. And God help us, what's going. I mean, no, let's leave that one.
We'll go to the comments. Got a few comments coming in. So Carrie Ann says, "Hi, Rob."
Hi, Carrie Ann.
And Gavin says, "Sibbo, the main man, love it." That was when you said that you'd come across me when you got into accessible travel. Carrie Ann, fully agree. There is a place for angry complaining, but it doesn't always create positive change.
That's absolutely right.
Eileen saying, "Fair play, Rob," and she says, "Rob is right. The more collective voices there are, the less we need to shout." Hit the nail on the head there, I think, hasn't it?
Because the danger is, you see, you know, when somebody shouts, somebody always has to shout louder, and then somebody has to shout louder than them, and before you know it, you've got a situation where the whole community is seen as an angry mob demanding change, you know. And you can be angry and you can demand change. If it can't be, I'm turning into fanaticism now, but you know, if it needs to be done calmly, sensibly, and with consent, where we all agree, consensually. You know, where everybody agrees that actually it is important, and you can make mistakes. That's probably a good way of looking at it, because if nothing will get done if you're not prepared to take a chance, and if you're scared to take a chance because you're going to be publicly shamed, blamed, humiliated, whatever, then people just won't try, and they'll sort of hide away. Going back to your original question, you know, what can be done? People like yourself, people like Carrie Ann, and many others that you know that I could mention. I'll take the fifth and, you know, use Fibro Fog as I can't remember all the names, but you know, there's enough people in the centre ground to drown out the noise, and that's where the positive change will come from. You know, certainly, you know, the Daily Sib, unfortunately I don't get to watch it every day, but I've seen so many people that I didn't even know existed, you know, and so many people with brilliant ideas and a drive to make positive change, and it's brilliant to see. And you know, the majority are are all singing from that same hymn sheet, and I think that's where the positive change will come from.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was never very active on social media anyway, to be honest, mainly because I didn't understand it. I think you mentioned the other day, was you and Carrie Ann, about the hashtags. You know, it was all gobbledygook to me. You know, my idea of using social media was, here's a poster I've put out, here's the link, good luck kind of thing, you know. And I feel that there's, especially coming out of this, you know, hopefully coming out of COVID. I mean, we've got the winter to come, but we've got an opportunity right now, because, as you say, COVID's been a great leveler, and it's probably made a lot more people realise how difficult things can be when you come out of your little bubble. You know, and it's devastating to see so many people lose their jobs, and it's devastating that so many people probably won't get a job for a long time. But you might get an understanding of what universal credit's like now.
Yeah.
And universal credit at the moment, if you're ever going to claim it, now's the time, because a lot of the restrictions and sanctions, well, I think the sanctions are back on now, aren't they? But, you know, it was a lot easier. And we're, you know, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but hopefully it'll make more people realise that it wasn't just people shouting and complaining. It was actually, that's what life was like, and still is like for a lot of people. And I hope, and that's where I'm hoping the positive change comes from. I doubt we'll ever be major socialist country, but you can live in hope, I suppose.
I guess the final thing I want to just go a little bit on before we start to wrap was, because I think
you want to shut me up. You mean you want to shut me up?
No, not at all. It's fascinating. I think we've touched upon some of the adventures that you and Bridget had, and obviously the way that all unfolded and the reasons that they've slowed down. And I think we've looked at the sort of broader inclusion challenge, if you like, whether it's tourism or not, like just generally that more sort of government and businesses engaging and embracing disabled people, but without the angry mob putting them off, sort of thing. But I mean, the actual mechanics, a bit of a weird word. I'm getting all marketingy, but the use of blogs. I mean, you know, like I think we both spoke in the past. There's something quite cathartic when you write a post about an experience. It's quite enjoyable on a personal level. And you obviously said when you became Bridget's full-time carer, you'd been working. So it sounds like it was nice to have that, something to get your teeth into as well. So, I mean, if going forward, the trips might be a bit harder, or you said, like, you know, maybe you're not sort of as bothered about doing the cherry on top luxury trips and stuff. Like, could you see the blog still blogging, but evolving in a different way in the future?
Yes, I would describe the blog at the moment as in transition, really, because obviously I've got a whole new set of experiences that I didn't have when I was writing in earnest.
And that is blogging in a way. It's whatever we go through, isn't it?
And I think like a lot of bloggers, you know, you fall into the trap when you start getting, you know, views and a decent amount of views, and then people are offering you trips and they're offering to pay you money to write something, and you fall into that trap of you stop blogging about what you wanted to blog about, and you start blogging about not necessarily what you're being paid to blog about, but it's impossible not to be biased. You know, and I think going forward for me, the blog is effectively becoming a lifestyle blog rather than an accessible travel blog.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, the travel will be a part of the rest of the story. And at the moment, well, certainly, you know, I mean, believe it or not, I've actually still got probably 10 posts that I need to publish from trips we did 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And and I feel terrible about it, but I just haven't had the energy to. In fact, the most of those posts are almost finished. I just never got them over the line because I just didn't have the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
And I think going forward, from our point of view, somehow, because all my savings have gone now, I need to get my hands on 2 folding electric wheelchairs. It's simple as that, because it's not going to make an interesting blog if it involves here's me getting out of the car and here's us getting back in the car. So I need to come up with, or somehow get my hands on 2 mobility aids. Certainly the chair for Bridget, because with the hand she needs the the joystick, and I think that will give us the opportunity to travel further afield. I'm actually not worried about COVID, in all honesty, with traveling.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're sensible, I think if you take the precautions that you need to take.
Yeah, we know it now, don't we?
Yeah. Then I think you've got to live your life. And I think that will be going forward. Where the blog will be going, because it'll be going back to being about us, because that's what we're expert at.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to say, oh, you should do this and you should do that, like I did when I first when it was naive when I started. And I realise now there must have been people who never ever spoke up, going, what's he talking about? And I actually wish somebody would have said, what's he talking about? Because you sort of get on the roll, don't you? Go, I must be doing it right because nobody's mentioned anything. And I think the feedback is important. Now, there may be people who watch this today and think, what a diffie. That's fine. For me, I'm getting back to being me.
Yeah.
But the toned down version of me.
Yeah.
And I think that
just with new experiences and new learning.
And so the blog will be about living with cancer. The blog will be about living with fibromyalgia, or constant fatigue, or constant breathlessness. It can be about that interaction of being a full-time carer and having those things, how that's impacted on our relationship. And obviously there'll be travel involved in that as well. I think there may be product reviews. If it's a product I think that people will benefit from and should be known, can afford. I know the conversation yesterday, and we've had this conversation in the past. There'll be certain things that people can afford, and there'll be certain things people can't afford, and there's room for both.
Yeah.
There's room for both, and a lot of people will write about the things that people can't afford, or people that they can't afford themselves, and that's fine. I'll be writing about the stuff that actually you can do for free or for very little. Be the guinea pig. Can you? We're talking about Airbnb. Can you go and stay in an accessible property for 30, 40 quid a night? I don't know.
Yeah.
You could have a tent. It could be a situation where there's itineraries in. For argument's sake, let's can we spend 7 days in North Wales for X amount of money? So it's a challenge, and I don't want to be that person who says, well, look, if I can do it, you can do it, because we both know that it's probably the most overrated statement. I want to be able to go, well, look, here's what we did, here's how we did it, this is the result, here's the problems we found, and the caveat is, you've got to make your own decision.
Yeah. Take with it what you will. Yeah.
And I think that way, the blog will get back to being useful rather than just being, oh, look at this product today that I think is fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. Carrie Ann just said, We love a pivot. You have so much valuable content to share. We shouldn't limit ourselves because of what we think the audience expects. I think Ariane's had a very similar transformation as to you, and indeed myself. I mean, I still want to blog, and I will do, maybe more social media stuff like this, really, rather than writing longer articles at the moment. And that will change again in a year. But that's the key, is that we do us, and the rest can just sort itself out.
And I think that's the only way you can be, isn't it? Because, I mean, I know obviously a lot, you're heavily involved in influencer marketing at the moment. And, that's really, really important for the community as a whole.
Yeah.
But we can't all be influencers. I hate that term. We can't all be influencing people to do the same thing. The only thing we can do is be ourselves.
It's almost the words, even in the mainstream sort of influencer world, it's got different connotations. It's a bit of a catch-all. And I think with disability, in a way, it's more the people that are trying to create inclusion. It's that sort of influence. But in the context of what we're saying, it's kind of like informers, not like KGB informers, but it's just giving information that's relevant to the content creator, and in a way, the consequences it has influence. But yeah, I think that's not the point to influence. The point is just to all have a voice and share our experiences.
Well, maybe you should invent a new word then, a new marketing term.
We need to do disability as well, right?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I mean, personally, I think outside of the disabled community, all the influencers look the same to me. To be honest, I can't tell one from the other. And I think you're absolutely right. And this goes full circle. That what we were all talking about originally, and you way before me, was about, and Kellyanne as well, and many others, was making sure that the information was available to help people make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the influencers hate. Stop it! I need to just ban myself from saying that word. I think that's what people should be interested in now, especially post-COVID. And Kellyanne was talking about this the other day. Be you. I mean, you don't need to be anybody. You're living the best life right now. I mean, you're number one in the world or something. I've always been a big fan. So yeah, I think just be yourself. Because there's so many brilliant ideas and so many brilliant companies now, that are doing things that will make life easy for people. So people like ourselves, bloggers and social media, famous social media people, just be yourself. And people can't relate to look at me. People can relate to actually look at me falling over and look.
It's something about being self-deprecate. The word deprecating sounds similar to another word that just doesn't sound very nice. that self-humility, I think, and vulnerability is a strength in this setting.
Did you say the V word?
Yes, I know. Who knew? Anyway, mate, I'm going to have to wrap because I've got someone coming on the door in a minute and the dog's going to go mental live on air. But how can people follow you and Bridget? Where's best to follow you?
Well, the blog is thebimblers.com. Yep. On Facebook, I'm Rob Bimbler. Obviously, that's not my surname. We make that up. And it's the Bimblers page is the Bimblers blog. You can find me on Twitter at the Bimblers. Find me on Instagram at the Bimblers. Although
the Bimblers everywhere.
Yeah, to be honest, just type into Google the Bimblers, and there's us and a cycling group in Australia. So you'll probably know where I am.
Cool. And if any luxury yacht brands are watching.
Yeah.
No, really, mate, good to catch up. And yeah, I think we haven't spoke for a while, so I definitely, learned a lot more where you're at now with thinking around the blog. And I think the conversation we've had is very important around the sort of language and the alignment of the community and not scaring brands off. But I would also say the move, I thought with Purple Goat, we're just starting a marketing agency, which it is, in a way it is. But what I'm learning is actually building the bridge from brands to disabled people. That's the job I'm currently doing. And it's about insights both ways and then promotion both ways. And it's easy to say and not as easy to do, but it feels like it's a tool that could achieve some of what we've spoke today anyway.
The point is, you're doing it. That's the point, isn't it? And the hurdle that we all had to try and get over a number of years ago was, how do you make that jump from Little Voices in the Wilderness to brand?
Yeah.
And, you've managed to do it, and only good things can come from that. I know you need to go.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, let's not leave it too long till we catch up again. But thanks again today. Send a love to Bridget and everyone. Thanks for watching today's episode. See you soon.
Cheers. Thank you.